Welcome to Skillz On Sportz. I'm your host, Dave Winfield. I'm not Dave Winfield. The resemblance is there, but no, I am not Dave Winfield. I am your boy, Skillz Savage, back again for a third Chop It Up session in the world of sports, on the world of sports, however you want to properly say it. Dave Winfield, there's a blast from the past. If you never saw Dave Winfield play, Dave Winfield was a bad dude. I mean, drafted in 3 sports, 6'6", could do everything, and the guy, in addition to getting over 3,000 hits in his career and over 400 home runs in his career, he accidentally killed a bird with a baseball and spent a night in a Canadian jail. This was in Toronto, 1983, and then he had George Steinbrenner, his owner, he was with the Yankees. That was the team owner at the time. George Steinbrenner had a actual henchman or whoever he was, a gambler, professional guy, dig up dirt on Winfield because he didn't want to pay him the last couple years of his contract, and that landed Steinbrenner on suspension for 2 years in the early 90s. And then, of course, Dave Winfield was once in the middle of the 94 strike, traded for dinner from the Twins to the Indians for what amounted to be a plate of dinner. I'm not making that up. I'm not making that up at all. Dave Winfield certainly had a great career. He definitely had a unique career, and that is why I'm channeling him here today. That little, I think I might do that all the time, unless you all think it's stupid. Pat Sajak, the host of Wheel of Fortune, back in the day when he was first becoming a big name in game shows, a big name in television, he would come back from commercial breaks from Wheel of Fortune and say, "Hi, welcome back to Wheel of Fortune. I'm Steve Martin," or some other celebrity at the time. And I was a kid at the time. I thought it was hilarious. I hated that he stopped doing that. He did it on his talk show too. Maybe there's a reason why he stopped doing it. I seem to be the only one who not only thought it was hilarious, but remembers he ever even did it. Can't find it on YouTube anywhere. But Pat Sajak is one of my guys, so it's all good there. I'd be proud to be mentioned a breath with him. Anyway, let's get back on point here. I had planned to give you at least 2 hours this morning of prep time. I wanted to have certain stats, certain numbers, certain patterns and contractual situations laid out for you because I'm trying to spit facts here. However, we're dealing with a shaky internet connection that's been shaky for the last 2 days now and is currently unavailable. I was unable to get 90% of what I wanted to get for you, so what we're going to do is we're going to wing it. We winged it on my first 2 shows. We winged it, and I didn't have that much prep. And from what I understand, they weren't complete disaster, so I'm going to hope that we can strike platinum one more time. We'll start off. I wanted to get into, last night, the Denver Nuggets went up on the Lakers 2-0 in their best of 7 third-round playoff series, the conference finals, as they're also known, if you want to be technical. And I said at the end of my broadcast last week that I was pulling for, or I predicted Nuggets versus Heat, but I'm also pulling for Nuggets versus Heat, and here's why. Can't pull for the Lakers ever. I'm a Warriors fan, you see? Can't pull for the Lakers ever under any circumstances. The one time in my life, I think there's been 2 times in my life where I pulled for the Lakers. One was when Magic Johnson returned as head coach in 1994. The Lakers at that time, he had been retired as a player for 3 years. And part of that was because of bigotry, people who just didn't know enough about HIV. Cough, Carmelone, cough, 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 cough. But this guy here, Magic, he was going to come back and kind of straighten things out for the Lakers. They kind of run into some immaturity issues and problems with guys like Nick Van Exel and so on and so forth. Dudes just, knuckleheads, basically. That didn't work out. I was kind of pulling for him to turn the Lakers around. I don't even know why I was pulling for him to turn the Lakers around, since them being good would have been bad for my Warriors, but hey, I was 14, I was stupid. The other time I supported the Lakers in my life was after Kobe Bryant died in 2020, and that situation is just it's so freak. It doesn't even really count as a sporting situation when you have a franchise icon dead at age 41, and I'd have to be inhuman to not at least pull for the Lakers to kind of like at least win one for Kobe in his honor the next night or whatever. And I don't remember if they did or not, but they were the Lakers did not have they didn't need a lot of well, the truth is Kobe had been retired by then for 4 years, and I don't. If there was anyone left on that team who played with him, I can't think of him off the top of my head. But he was an icon. He was obviously still around the team. Everyone knew who he was. He probably came and went as he pleased. He could probably, if he ever felt like it, just walk in the middle of the Staples Center. Yes, I'm still calling it the Staples Center. I'll never stop, so deal with it. And shoot whenever he wanted to, just a scrimmage. He could probably bring Gianna, rest in peace, Gianna. Also, he could have brought her there, shot her around on the empty baskets in the middle of the night if he wanted to. He's Kobe Bryant. He could have done whatever he wanted to do. So that's the second time I was kind of in support of the Lakers. I wasn't like pulling for them to win the championship. I would never. There is no situation, no circumstance I would ever pull for the Lakers to win the championship. Maybe unless the current roster of Memphis Grizzlies was kept together and shifted to the Eastern Conference and faced the Lakers next year. That's the only circumstance in which I would pull for the Lakers to win. I'm a Warriors fan. Like Monte Ellis said, I'm a Warriors, and I'm always going to be a Warriors. Los Angeles, they got Jokic is a beast. If no one can fully understand why this man won back-to-back MVPs in spite of being plodding and not very athletic and not very exciting. Jokic is a freaking beast. I'm telling you. If you don't believe anything I ever tell you, this guy, he had a triple-double last night. He lit up the Lakers. They won. The Nuggets won that game 108-103. Los Angeles came back a little flurry at the end, but it wasn't enough. LeBron missed the dunks. Apparently, he's not feeling perfectly fine physically either. They're going back down to the. Now they're going back to Los Angeles. They were in they call it Ball Arena, but I still call it the Pepsi Center. 2-0. The Lakers are down 2-0 after losing Game 1 on Tuesday, which was, I believe, by a 132-126 score, and Jokic had it going on that night too. But here, the story, Jamal Murray was the story in the fourth quarter yesterday. If you can see, 23 points. He was doing it in multiple different ways. It was like Lonnie Walker against the Warriors in Game 4 of the second round series. Just they had no answer for Murray. Although Murray is, I think it's safe to say that even with his restored ACL, Jamal Murray is a slightly better player than Lonnie Walker. You might expect him to do more things than you would expect from Lonnie Walker. But yeah, Murray had a great game. They needed, as it turned out, all of it. So they will look to protect that 2-0 series lead. I looked up a stat about teams up 2-0 at home in the conference finals. If I'm not mistaken, they've never blown a best of 7. Now I could be mistaken there because, like I said, I didn't get my full opportunity to prep this morning. Thank you, Xfinity. But if it ends up I'm wrong about that, I will correct myself next week, and you can cane me or throw stones at me, whatever you want to do. I am just trying to keep it real here. The Miami Heat, man, they're, as far as a team being powered by one guy. And when I say powered by, I mean adopting the personality of one guy on the team, letting one guy basically be in charge of the team, letting one guy take over when necessary for the team. I'm not sure, and I remember when Kobe was in the finals without Shaq too, in 2009 and 2010. I think 2008 too. I'm not sure I've ever seen a team since Michael Jordan's Bulls so connected to its star and so driven by its star the way the Heat are driven by Jimmy Butler, the former Bull. And Jimmy Butler has a colorful history in the NBA. He's been a underrated star. He's been an overrated star. He's been a fierce, proud leader. He's been a bit of a troublemaker. And when I say a bit of a troublemaker, I mean a huge troublemaker. You saw what he did in Minnesota with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. And if you didn't, look it up because it's pretty freaking gnarly. He's been that guy. He's been a lightning rod for controversy. He's been a lightning rod for praise. There's not another guy. I don't know if there's another guy in the NBA right now who you could believe capable of going on opposite end of the spectrum at any given time the way Jimmy Butler can. Allen Iverson might have been the last guy who comes close. Because with Iverson, you could just as easily believe he took all his teammates out to dinner one night as a bonding experience, and then the next night you could totally believe he socked one of them in the stomach for not passing the ball. Butler's the same way in that regard. He's a guy who can do, when he's on, pretty much anything on the court. He can post you up, he can back you down, he can shoot over you, he can go around you, and he's a tough, rugged defender. He doesn't give a crap. He's out there to win. He's out there to play hard. That's one thing you can't question about him when he's on the court. In between the lines, to borrow a baseball phrase, the guy is a badass when tip off, once the ball is tipped off. And Miami needed a guy, probably more than any other team in the league. When they got Butler, Miami needed a guy. Dwayne Wade was retired as of 2019, and Miami was just kind of floating. And what did they do when they got Butler? They made the 2020 NBA Finals and lost to the Lakers. But the fact that they even made it to those finals with not the most talented roster, not the most sexiest roster. Butler, Bam was on that team. I think Harrell might have been on that team. I got to go back and check. Different guys. But Miami, they needed an identity. They needed a leader. They needed someone to build around more than anyone. They needed Butler. Butler needed them. Butler was becoming a journeyman and becoming, I wouldn't say a punchline, but becoming a negative. And they were throwing the C word around with him, cancer, locker room cancer. But this marriage here seems to be working out very well. Although, let me remind you, last year, on my birthday, no one remembers this but me. No one I know saw this but me. I even called our local radio station, 95.7 The Game, and one of the hosts sort of remembered it, the other host didn't. Last year on my birthday, March 23rd, when the Heat came to San Francisco, and were getting run by the Warriors early in the game, Jimmy Butler and, of all people, Udonis Haslem were about ready to throw down right there on the courts. Eric Spoelstra was throwing his clipboard around. They didn't look like a very cohesive team, but now look at them now. They're headed full steam ahead to, we're in the conference finals. They got as good a shot as Boston, if not more, to go to the semifinals, or, good God, NBA finals as an 8th seed, a play-in 8th seed, which has obviously never been done before. There's been 5 8th seeds all time to have gone to the to have even gotten out of the first round. The 94 Nuggets were the first one to do. Remember, Dikembe Mutombo hold the ball. Get Dikembe hold the ball. No. When they beat Seattle, Sean Kemp and Gary Payton Sr. up at Key Arena. And then it happened again in 99 Knicks. Allen Houston with the little rim bouncer shot that went in. And I'm not sure if I'm going to, poop my pants or not. Look on his face. Remember that one? And there was one from the Spurs got knocked out by, I think it was Dallas, not long after that. One of those years. It must have been 2011, I guess, whenever. No, well, Dallas wouldn't have been an AC in 2011. I have to go back and look. Show prep people. So the Heat would be making history. They already made history by just becoming one of those select teams that even escaped the first round. They were certainly the first play-in team to go this far in the playoffs. If they make the finals, wouldn't that be something? I'm pulling for them to make the finals. Not because I'm a Heat fan, but because, hey, Boston's been there enough. They've been there. They were there last year. They lost to my Warriors last year. Hooray, yay. Check the celebration video out on youtube.com at the Skillz Report. It's up there. And then you also have the Celtics, kind of like, you like the storybook finish. You like the storybook ending. Bill Russell passed away last, summer or fall? And it would be kind of like poignant for Boston, of course, to win a title. immediately turn around and take a championship back for the 11-time champion Bill Russell in his memory, because somewhere up above he would like that, I'm pretty sure. And then they also lost. Boston lost at least one of the key member of its history, former player and coach Chris Ford, in the last year, if I'm not mistaken, has been since last year's finals. And is there anyone else I'm missing off the top of my head? I can't think. Not that you need anyone else when you have Bill Russell's name to try to honor and hold up to. But hey, it doesn't always work out that way. It doesn't always work out that way. I'm pretty sure that when Wilt passed away in '99, the Warriors would have loved to have won the title in his name the next year. That didn't happen for another 16 years. So you don't always get the storybook ending. I don't think Bill Russell will come back down to earth and slap anyone if the Celtics fall here in the conference finals to the Miami Heat. So yeah, there's my prediction. Not only my prediction, but my wish is for Heat against Denver. Denver's never won the NBA Finals. I don't think they've ever been to the NBA Finals. They've been, these are two expansion teams, basically. Well, Denver's a merger team. Denver came to the league in '76 when the ABA and NBA merged together, back in the days of David Thompson and Dan Issel and those guys. And throughout the years, they've had a lot of interesting teams, high-scoring teams, a lot of guys who could do a lot. They draw you to the building if nothing else. They score a lot of big scores. Fat Lever. We're talking about Alex English. We're talking about Mutombo. Well, he's not a scorer, but he was the most exciting defender of his time. And later on, of course, they get Carmelo Anthony, and J.R. Smith is bombing. And yes, they could just never put it all together and beat the teams they need to beat to get to the NBA Finals. They've had good coaches, too, ranging from Doug Moe to George Karl was there in the O's. Mike Malone's obviously a great coach now. I'm sorry, Michael. I hear he does not like being called Mike. So Michael Malone is doing some things now up in Denver. Who's the guy who was their coach in the '90s? Who am I thinking of? I'm blanking. Oh, Jalen Rose started out with the Denver Nuggets. Don't forget. In the mid '90s with Brian Stith on that team, and Mutombo and so on, and LaFonso Ellis. So they've had some good players. They've had good players and just not been able to do a lot with it. That should change this year. Denver, to me, especially with LeBron a little hobbled and Davis. I mean, Davis had a big game too, but Nikola Jokic is not human. He's not. And I'm going to take a sip of my morning coffee. I usually come at you in the evening times. Today I'm coming at you in the morning time. It's 10:27 a.m. right now. And there's nothing people enjoy more than listening to obese men slurp coffee out of the cup. Thanks to my boy Nate Pizzotti for hooking me up with that French roast pod for my Keurig. And thank you, my boy Nate Pizzotti, for hooking me up with the Keurig in the first place as well. Getting back to what I was saying. Yeah, Denver, they're stacked. They're stacked. Los Angeles, they've basically been, they've been LeBron and they've been Anthony Davis in different times during the year. Different guys like D'Angelo Russell has shined. Oh, I'll get back to Russell. I'll finish my point here, then I'll get back to Russell. Russell, Vanderbilt's put up some points here and there. He's done some things. He's played some defense. Hachimura's contributed. I mentioned Lonnie Walker earlier when he was in a rotation early in the season. Then he went out, and then he came back later on in the season as a playoff contributor against my Warriors. So obviously I not to find a way to leave a turd on his lawn as revenge, but that's another story. You didn't hear that, by the way. No, Denver's pretty stacked, and they didn't get this far by accident. They had holes previously that have since been patched up. I think they would have made the finals 2 years ago had Jamal Murray not hurt his knee against my Warriors. I think they had a good roster that year too, good enough to go all the way. Michael Porter is at least all the way to the finals. I don't know if they would have beaten God dang it, who won in 2021? The Bucks. I don't know if they would have gotten past Giannis, but we'll never know. Then you have Michael Porter back from his back injury. Why isn't every Porter in the league, by the way? Every Porter in the league is a junior. Michael Porter Jr. The guy who was down in Houston, or I think he is down in Houston. Kevin Porter Jr. former Cavalier, the guy that got kicked off the Cavaliers for being a jerk. And Otto Porter Jr., of course, the former Warrior who missed almost all the season with a broken foot, played 8 games for the Raptors. All the Porters are juniors. I don't know why that is. It's just one of those weird things in NBA history. You know, Terry Porter wasn't a junior. That's the only Porter. That's the number one Porter of all time in my book, unless Michael Porter is able to get this championship, which Terry Porter was never able to do. But anyway, getting back to, I started my little story about D'Angelo Russell. Russell was called for a foul against Denver. I think it was game two. He was called for a foul against Denver that we could best describe as, and it was a flagrant foul. It was ruled a flagrant foul after review, by the way. And basically, it's probably maybe the worst call I've ever seen, especially in a playoff game. In terms of, it was loony. There's no reason to, if you've seen the play, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen the play, go look it up. It was not a flagrant foul by any stretch, and now he's got points accruing toward him. I hope he's able to not that I care if the Lakers, anyone on the Lakers, but that would just stink. I would not want even a Laker to be knocked out of contention, knocked out of the postseason, in part because of a silly, ridiculous call like that. It was just bad. You can't do that. You just can't. Russell and Jeff Van Gundy, I tried to have a link for you for that today, but as I mentioned before, tech issues, Xfinity was not able to get you the link to Jeff Van Gundy's, calling the game for ESPN, his tirade. Basically, he had an on-air, gave his very stern, fierce opinion on that call. And Van Gundy's known to do that sort of thing, but this one here was a little special. Jeff Van Gundy, it was almost like he had skin in the game for this one. Yeah, look it up. It was good. He called out the officials for that, and deservedly so, because you can't call a flagrant foul. What is the guy supposed to do? Just vanish in the thin air? One of these days, I'm going to have replays available for you, and I'm going to have clips be able to show you in live action once if you're kind enough to keep me around long enough to where I can establish those things, then that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be able to have full graphics, technology, interaction, all that great stuff down the road. But this is only my 3rd show, and I don't know if we're going to be a hit yet or not. So we'll just wait and see how things turn out, and we'll go from there. Fair enough? I think so. So that's where we're at in the NBA. At this point in time, I would like to take you to baseball just a little bit. We're going to talk. I'm checking my net connection here because all I have right now is my phone to go on. The way I was going to do it I was going to just run down the standings, break away from the regular show, just run down the standings. I didn't get to set that up. I keep mentioning that. So, what I'll tell you is the American League East. Tampa Bay, remember they got off to that, 15-0 start this year? They're still in first place by decent margin over Baltimore. Yes, Baltimore's in second place. Baltimore's 28-13, or 28-16, I'm sorry. Tampa Bay is 32-13. Got Toronto in third place at 25-19. Got the Yankees at 26-20. And then bringing up the rear, also over 500 though, is the Boston Red Sox. All 5 teams in the East, American League East, are at least 4 games over 500. That hasn't happened in a minute, and it's almost guaranteed to not end that way. And here I'm getting to the reason why that is. In the American League Central, you have the Twins up in first place. They're the only team over 500 in that division. The other 4 teams, Cleveland, Detroit, White Sox, the Royals, are all sub 500, and I almost called Cleveland the I words, the Guardians. So that's the American League East is beating up on the American League Central, and they're also beating up on, like everyone else in the baseball community, the Oakland A's, who are up to 10 wins now, 10-35, easily the worst record in baseball. Texas still leads, led by Bruce Bochy, and Jacob deGrom in and out of the lineup is not preventing them from holding on to first place. They're 26-17 in first place, with the Houston Astros coming up behind them at 24-19. The Angels are 23-22. They've kind of skidded a little bit lately. Seattle 21-22, hanging in there. They're trying to get back to the playoffs for a second straight year in a row after breaking their drought last year. And then you have, of course, bringing up the rear, the Oakland A's. Now, over in the National League, we have Atlanta, first place, still 27-16. The Marlins got a little hot last week. Were able to take over second place from the Mets. The Marlins are 23-21. Quick, let's step away for a minute. I will give you $5, $5 American dollars. First person who can mail me the name of Marlins Park, the Marlins' current name of their ballpark, without using Google. Just, come on, it's $5. Don't cheat. Just if you know it, you know it. If you don't, you don't. And if you're from Florida, great. I'm confident there's few enough fans down there to to skew the fairness of the competition. Because those of you who are there either don't care about the name or have forgotten it. All right, that's what I'm banking on, and I like the Marlins. I've always liked the Marlins. That's all the respect to the Marlins. I don't think they should have ever got rid of their first uniforms, and then I got used to their second uniforms, and I got rid of those too once I started to like them. I don't like all the fire sailing and stuff like that, but I've always pulled for the Marlins to do well. Florida's a beautiful place for the most part, in spite of the face eating and things like that I've heard down there. The baseball team, I've always pulled for both baseball teams to do well. And that's strange considering they almost stole my Giants from me 30 years ago. Sip of coffee. I think I'll have a cookie too. Good coffee. I have half a cookie. Chunky Chips Ahoy. Cover the microphone a little bit. Maybe I should have paused before I ate this cookie. I gotta kill an hour, so whatever. All right. So right now, if the season ended today, it looks like the Marlins would have a playoff spot. And Washington continues to just flounder since winning the 2019 World Series. Steven Strasburg is still on the payroll. When was the last time you even heard that name? He's still on the payroll, still making what? That was a $219 million deal for 7 years, I think. Or $217 for 7, I think. So that was $31 million a year. That's ended up being. He's the only one left from the championship year. Not that he's contributing anything to this current team. And I know he would be if he could be. It's just, what a situation. This is why you cannot spend that kind of money on most pitchers. And Strasburg, at the time. He'd had some injuries early in his career, and he had some health problems, different things, circulatory issues and stuff like that are usually just, you don't want to mess around with those. But they felt confident enough he was going to be the guy, and it's backfired. It's blown up in their face big time. They haven't done squat since they won that World Series. But at least they won that World Series, right? Which is more than what the Montreal Expos ever did. Montreal Expos never even got to a World Series. RIP Expos. I love the Expos. I respect the Expos. I'm not trying to badmouth the Expos. I will always miss the Expos. Okay. National League Central. Milwaukee. Coming up. 24-19. Leading the way. Taking over for Pittsburgh, who got off to the hot start. That was certainly not going to last. They've lost 7 out of 10 since then. And they've also lost a couple of guys. Who were the... Show prep. This was going to be written down for you. I know they lost a couple guys recently to the injured list. And by the way, the 33-year-old rookie, I believe his name was Sega, or however you say his last name, he is no longer on the 25-man roster. I don't think he's on the 40-man roster either. I think he was outrighted back to the minors. But at least he can say he got a major league hit. He got some major league run for a short period of time. It's more than what a lot of guys get. And it was well worth the wait in his eyes, I'm sure. Best of luck to him. Maybe one day he'll be back. Who knows? All I know is that I've seen 100 of these guys over the years, from on my Giants on through every other team pretty much there's been a guy at some point, like a 30-year-old guy, who spent forever in the minor leagues, beat this issue, beat that adversity, triumphed over this injury, blah, 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 makes it to the major leagues, makes his debut, and I haven't been fazed by it. Maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe it's all the medication I take, but I was fazed. I was affected. My emotions, it was almost like onions were being cut. When Sega stepped on that field for the first time, got that round of applause, and he struck out, but still, I hadn't gotten a feeling like that. I think the last time I felt like that was when Adam Greenberg. Remember Adam Greenberg, the guy who he was with the Cubs in his major league debut with the Cubs back in '05, and the Marlins pitcher, Latin American guy. What was his name? I'm blanking on his name right now. Show prep, people. I'll know it if I see it. But Valerio de los Santos, I think it was, beamed him on the first pitch, knocked him like right down, hit right in the face with a fastball. And Greenberg didn't return to the major leagues until 2014, and even then, it was only as a token gesture by the Marlins. And I'm not sure why. If it was just the case of them being human, or if there was any kind of like tie to him from in their system, I'm not sure. I never really looked into it that closely, but Greenberg did come back to the major leagues, got one more at bat with the 2014 Marlins facing R.A. Dickey of the Mets. I mean, of the Blue Jays by that time, and Dickey struck him out. But you couldn't help but feel for the guy that all the things he went through trying to recover from that beating, all the momentum of his career was gone, and he comes back at least to say, in a way, he went out on his own terms. And you have to respect him for at least wanting to get back out there after such horrific injury. And speaking of beatings, and we'll get back to the rest of the standings here momentarily, I want to tell you there was another pitcher in over the weekend, this past weekend, hit in the head by a line drive. And it was Ryan Felter of the Colorado Rockies. And it was Nick Castellanos, who I don't really much care for, who lined the ball. Luckily, I say luckily, it was only 92.7 miles an hour off the bat, compared to some of these lasers that come off the bat approaching 110 when it hit these guys. Felter was knocked down, taken out of the game, put on the IL, as you might imagine. And Castellanos, after the game, was for one of the few times that I've seen him on camera, he was actually human and relatable. He said that he's kind of gotten a little softer since he's started his own family. You could tell it was really bothering him what he did to Feltner, and it was obviously, there was no way you can do that on purpose. There's no way you can intentionally hit a pitcher in the head with a line drive. And I've been hit in the head with a line drive. I don't know if I told you guys this in any of the previous shows, but I played in an amateur league from 2005 to 2009, which is how I met the guys who are employing me right now to do this show, Cav and Faust. I was standing in our league. First of all, I have to give you a little explanation. We would close off right field if we didn't have enough players to cover at least 9 or 10 players to play the full diamond. So we would close off right field. This is one of those games where anything up the middle was foul territory. So I, and my gooey mind, apparently thought that I would be safe standing in foul territory, taking down stats and taking photos or whatever I was doing. And one of our best players, probably our best player in that whole league, who was known to hit balls to the opposite field, got me with a line drive squarely. Well, it glanced slightly off my wrist and then hit me squarely in right here, knocked me off my feet, which is hard to do because even then, I weighed over 300 pounds even then, knocked me off my feet, dazed me a little bit. I didn't lose consciousness or anything like that, but I can tell you my head hurt for the rest of the day. And if that was from just a regular guy hitting a ball, which probably was only going about 90-something miles an hour at most, you can only imagine what these guys out here are facing, or what they're feeling, or what's happening to them. And when they're getting hit by 105 and up, Feltner's was only 92, and he still suffered, I believe they said, a skull fracture. Just as Ryan Yarbrough had some bone injuries to his head when he was hit last week by Ryan Noda of the Oakland A's, or 2 weeks ago by Ryan Noda of the Oakland A's. So, from obviously, best wishes to Feltner. And what this is going to do, this is going to get the talk in baseball of the major league. Major League Baseball is going to start talking about what can they do to protect the pitchers, and there really isn't anything that you can do to protect the pitchers short of putting a screen in front of them. And no one. I don't think anyone wants that. The pitchers certainly don't want it. I think the pitchers would take a chance at being hit with a screen right in front, unless that screen is raised so high that they can put it like in front of the mound where the pitcher's follow through is not impacted. But what happens when there's bunts? Then you have bunts. What if a line drive hits this tall fence? The pitcher's face is safe, but now you've altered the game. So you can't put a fence out there in front of them. We had Alex Torres. I believe he was either with the Padres or the Mets at the time, about 10 years ago. Go out there with that fitted cap, that special insulated cap that they put the protection inside. It almost looked like a construction hat, and he looked ridiculous. And I did not see how that would not have protected his face at all. And it had to be hard on his neck too, because extra weight. He didn't last in the major leagues much longer after that. So, and after he left, no one else tried it that I know of. So, I mean, what are your other options? You're not going to switch to a softer ball. You're not going to switch to lighter bats. And you're already using this ash, right? You're not going to order major leaguers to check in at 50% body fat. They're going to still be in shape. They're going to still be strong. And they're still going to hit baseballs hard. You're not going to move the mound back, because there's been minor leagues that experimented with that. You're going to screw up every stat known to man. You're going to screw up all your history cannot be compared. It's bad enough that, I personally would not have, with one exception, Fenway Park. I would, if I were in charge of baseball, have all the ballpark's dimensions be something close to symmetrical, at least down the lines, and at the center field wall. You might get me to mix things up in the alleys a little bit. You could probably, because you don't want to have like cookie cutter stadiums like we had in the 70s and 80s. You want to have some personality. I get that. But my long-standing belief is that, and this is coming from a guy whose favorite team plays at Oracle Park, which up until 2 years ago was where home runs went to die. I believe that all dimensions and all ballparks, at least down the lines in dead center field, should be equal. I believe if you hit a ball 400 feet here, it should be a home run no matter where you are. You hit a ball 400 feet, it should be a home run, period. And I know that at Oracle Park, whatever you want to call it, Brandon Belt, for example, was a guy who lost so many home runs over the years. JT Snow, his power. You look at his baseball card, and you see that he hit his last year in Candlestick Park. I believe he hit 27. I got to show prep. Thank you, Xfinity. But after he left after they moved to Oracle in 2000. I'm not sure did he ever hit more than 13 ever again after that? I'm not sure. I know he didn't crack 20. Didn't come close to it. The only person who could conquer, there was only two people who could consistently conquer right and right center field at Oracle Park. Barry Bonds was one. Pablo Sandoval was the other. Every other lefty hitter, man. Speaking of Brandon Belt, I want to give you some update on Brandon Belt, because he started this season ice cold for Toronto. Like, he was something like 0 for 18 with 13K at one point. And I haven't checked in on the stats all week. Let's see. Brandon Belt is now hitting, bear with me here, show prep, Xfinity. Gotta make that into something. Show prep, Xfinity fail. Xfaility. That's what we'll go with. Xfaility. Brandon Belt, as I struggle to pull up stats on my phone here, I know he was still playing for Toronto. I don't believe he's been hurt. He's still playing every day at first base. Has he been able to find his stroke so far in 2023? He has It is still loading. This is important enough for me to know. Well, now I can't even get to show up. I'm not gonna torment you people much longer. Okay, here he is. Pulling up Brandon Belt, DH. Oh, he's up to 250. He's up to 250 with 2 homers and 9 RBI. Good for him. Good for the former Giant Brandon Belt, the current Blue Jay, helping them in their return to playoff glory. Well, he has to DH because some Vlad guy is there. And I don't think Vlad's going to be giving up that job anytime soon. Yeah, Belt's picked it up. Good for him. All right, enough about Brandon Belt. We were going to cover the American League or the National League West. Dodgers got some bad news. Dustin May, their starting pitcher who missed most of the last couple seasons with, he had the Tommy John surgery. He's been back this year and he's been dealing. He has been dealing. Him and Kershaw have been a nice punch in that Dodger rotation, but he left to start. I think it was in the first or second inning. He left to start with elbow pain and he's on IL again. So here's, I loathe the Dodgers. I loathe the Dodgers. It is no secret. That being said, I will never pull for anyone to get hurt. That's ghetto to me. You just don't do that. You never want to see another human being physically harmed. And there is one human being, and I posted this on my Facebook and on my Instagram last week, and then I removed it because, well, I don't want to be that guy, and I don't want anybody coming after me. But there is one semi-celebrity out there who I would not mind seeing harmed. He is connected to the sports world. He is related to a very, very, very famous professional athlete, and he sucks. And I would wish physical harm on him just because, well, he physically harms other people. But I digress. Dodgers still holding on to first place. They had a 5-game winning streak last week, and they still have a seven wins in their last 10 games entering play today. They're 28-17 in first place. Right behind them are the Diamondbacks. Am I reading that right? 25-19 Diamondbacks. Toy Lavolo getting it done so far this season in spite of basically being one of the guys on the hot seat. I thought entering the season, I didn't think, I figured if that guy got off, they gave him a contract extension in spite of all the team struggles in recent years. So maybe he wasn't going to go anywhere. But that being said, did not expect to see the Diamondbacks in second place. I expect to see the Padres in second place. They're in fourth at 20-24, even with Tatis back in lineup. Machado's been hot lately. Soto has not. The Giants. My Giants are 20-23. They've won 3 in a row. They swept the Phillies this week. Yeah. And then Colorado Rockies bringing up the rear, 19-25. Last place, 8.5 games back of the Dodgers. But playing a little bit better lately. You still can't write anybody off in that division. The Dodgers are they're gonna always have. They seem to churn out new players whenever they need one from the minor leagues. But lately, this past offseason, some of those, I think the pipeline is starting to starting to empty out a little bit. Gavin Lux is starting now. They let go of different guys. Over the last couple of years, they've lost depth pieces like Kike Hernandez is long gone now. He's not there anymore. They had who's Matt Beatty. He's not there anymore. I don't think. Their pieces they don't have the same roster depth as they used to have. That's why it's been so crucial to them that Kershaw came back strong this year, which he has. He won his 200th game earlier this year. He's having a good season. Dustin May was doing his thing until he got hurt. The word is Walker Buehler is trying to come back before season's end. He had Tommy John surgery also. I think it was last fall. We'll see how that turns out for the Dodgers. I'm obviously not going to pull for him. Arizona Diamondbacks. There was this one of their. Actually, no. Let's start with this. Rockies and I didn't tell you last week. I got into it a little bit between the fight or the bench clearing incident between the Rockies and Bryce Harper and the Phillies. I didn't fully get into what I wanted to get into, which was Bryce Harper. In the eyes of most people and many around him, and those who are qualified to speak on Bryce Harper, say this guy's matured a lot. since his Washington days. And the truth, because we remember Harper the hothead when he was a young player getting into it with umpires all the time. He had today in the dugout where John Papelbon was ready to choke him to death in the dugout when they were both with Washington, just because Harper was being not hustling down first base line. Well, I mean, in life, just with anything else, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And if this is true, if Harper is now a guy who can be a respected leader, I mean, the Phillies got to the World Series last year. He missed. Now, granted, he did miss a good chunk of last year with his elbow surgery, but if he were a cancer, if he were not a guy, the money he's making, and he's never really, except for his MVP seasons, he's never put up great numbers. He's put up very good numbers, right? But he's not a guy who's going to challenge for like 55 home runs. He's not like freaking Mickey Mantle. I got a Mickey Mantle story to tell in a minute here. So what I'm saying is Harper's production versus his personality in the past was just good enough to get you beat in the playoffs, as Washington would tell you, right? Young Harper with the Washington Nationals got you to the playoffs every year, but he also got you eliminated every year before you even got out of the first round, including 1 year against my Giants. And that was the year that he began his feud with Hunter Strickland, which was settled 3 years later on Memorial Day in San Francisco. And since that brawl, I'm trying to think I don't think I've heard anything other than his injuries. I don't think I've heard anything negative about Harper since that day. And he's had some injuries. And even that day, he was justified to try to whip Hunter Strickland's ass. He really was. Strickland was out of line that day. I remain a Giants and Strickland fan. That said, he was out of line that day. He was being a baby. And he deserved to get punched by Bryce Harper. And he deserved to have that helmet thrown straight, too. But that didn't happen. So, Harper the Philly, this new and improved version, if this is the version that we're seeing, and from what I'm hearing, what this rookie pitcher, who, if you don't know the story, if you don't remember, he struck out Harper, and there had been there's been an exchange of some sort of, it could have been like a baseball unwritten rule thing, one of those stupid things. And the rookie reliever for the Rockies, whatever the hell his name was, had some words for the Phillies dugout after he struck out Harper. Well, Harper is not a guy who's going to take high to that sort of thing, so he gave his 2 cents, and there was a little pushing and a little talking, but in the end, no punches, no nothing like that. And it was one of the Rockies who commented, one of the veteran Rockies, it could have been Charlie Blackmon, Xfinity, who was quick to praise Harper as not being the same hothead he used to be, and That's saying something, because he was there was no ball there was no strike that he didn't think was a ball for most of his early career. So and I've always been kind of hesitant to like or dislike Harper, because he was almost like two different guys a lot of the time. You love the passion, you love the diving catches, you love the wild hair, you love the beard, and the guy could hit home runs, some majestic home runs that would just take your breath away. He's a very talented. As far as talent, the guys, he reminds me a lot. He's just, to me, a step below, maybe a couple of steps below Reggie Jackson in terms of flair and talent. He reminds me of, even though I never really saw Reggie play, because Reggie was retired by the time I got into baseball, but I have seen a ton of Reggie's video, a ton of his past games. I've seen his 3 home runs in the Game 6 of the 77 World Series. I've seen a lot of Reggie in action on film. And Harper reminds me a lot of Reggie. The way the ball comes off his bat, the way his strikeouts are exciting, the way he can make a diving catch in the outfield while, at the same time not being a great outfielder, not making great decisions out there. So he's been a player, and in the I know at least last season, it was kind of easy to forget about him because he had the elbow surgery and he was DHing in a league where DHs just simply didn't exist until last year. COVID year accepted, World Series accepted. So Harper basically is a guy, and he's coming up on 300 career home runs now. Check the milestone tracker at www.theskillsreport.com for my Major League Baseball, NFL, and NBA milestone trackers. Do it. I should last bite of cookie. I really don't eat that many cookies. This bag of cookies is the first one I've bought in like months. I was just having a mild craving. So here's what we're going to do for the last 10 minutes of the show. As you don't know, at least I hope you don't know. If you do know this, then you're a stalker and you access my medical records and I hate you. I take blood pressure medication. Information redacted, so I'm holding it like this. I take 2 types of blood pressure medication, and part of the reason why I do that is because I run a little hot. I can run a little hot when it comes to sports. I can run a little hot when it comes to a lot of things. But I try not to run so hot anymore. It's because I have a daughter now. As I've gotten older, I like to think I've matured a little bit over the years. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. I know I'm not as bad as I used to be. But the truth is, I still get fired up over things. There are still things to get my blood pressure rising in the world of sports. And that's why I'm devoting this section here, this segment of our show, to Skillz, why Skillz needs pills, with Z's. And this is where the graphic will appear, why Skillz needs pills. And this segment will be devoted to sports topics and sports stories that just piss me off. I got 2 for you now. First one I'll start with is the now ex-girlfriend of Tiger Woods. I don't remember her name. I don't care. We'll call her Beth. If you know the story, it's been around for a couple weeks now, and I meant to bring it up to you when in my first show that ran late. I did not get a chance to get around to it, but I'm getting around to it now. This Beth girl, basically, she had been an employee of Tiger's before she was a cohabitant and a partner, sexual partner of Tiger's. And she moved in with him, and she, was his girlfriend. And according to her, they're broken up now. What happened was he broke up with her a few weeks ago, or whatever it was, through his attorney, I believe. He told her they were going to go fly somewhere, but he had his attorneys meet her there and say, no, you're not flying anywhere, you're actually moving out. And I guess while that was happening, he was getting her stuff out of the apartment and changing locks, whatever. That's if I have my Xfinity. I didn't get to print the story out, so that's what I got for you. But that's the gist of it. If I'm wrong about whatever, then whatever. That's just the gist of it. So, Tiger and I think they were together for 4 years. This Beth girl is taking Tiger to court because she feels she is entitled to a certain amount of money. It's in the high millions. I think it's $30 million. Because according to her, Tiger told her that she was going to live with him for 11 years total. So 7 more than what she ended up living with him. And the $30 million is to cover what the lifestyle she would have to have if she were paying for her own shelter, her own home, at the rate of money for 7 years, that to live at that same level of that life of luxury she was living with Tiger in his $400 zillion mansion or whatever. And she is actually taking him to court. She is suing her boyfriend basically for dumping her and making her leave his house. There's more elements to the story, but basically what you have is you have this Beth girl trying to introduce alimony to an unmarried couple. And we've had stories of palimony in the past, but there's always been some sort of legal connection to that, maybe like a common law marriage, or there's always been some sort of contract where services were being rendered why an unmarried man would have to pay his ex any money after they break up. Those palimony cases, from everything I understand, are few and far between. They're rarely won by the person seeking the money. So this Beth girl wants his money. This is basically probably a money grab from the beginning. You can't, blood pressure. You can't sue someone for dumping you. You're not entitled to a settlement if you're not married to the guy. You were never married to the guy. You were never close to married to the guy. the guy, Tiger, is probably never going to marry again, considering his last wife beat him with golf clubs when he got caught stepping out, which I'm pretty sure he still does. Well, let me take that back. I shouldn't accuse him of that. Let me just say, it wouldn't surprise me if he still does. Let's just put it that way. If I were Tiger Woods, I'd have a different girl in bed every night. I wouldn't commit to anybody, but that's just me. So he's fighting his case. Obviously, he's not going to just give in and give away $30 million, even though he probably has $30 million in his toilet tank right now. But the principle is, you're not married. You're not entitled to his money. He made a verbal promise to you, big deal. That doesn't mean anything. He probably made a verbal promise to you right after lovemaking. You know what? What if he promised to make you a sandwich right after lovemaking too? You gonna sue him for that? I want $30 million and a sandwich from Tiger. I can't begin to tell you how many things I said to my child's mother right after the aftermath of lovemaking. All right, things that promises I probably had intentions of keeping at the moment, but didn't. I will stay with you forever. You know, I will buy you this. I will take you there. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. If she showed up at my door suing me for that trip to Disneyland or suing me for that trip to Hawaii, they would laugh her out of court. They'd laugh at me because I'd probably be laughing and snorting and making funny noises myself. Because it would all be just a big joke. Man. This is the world we're coming to. This is the world we have. This is the world we have where you can now just sue people for breaking up with you, basically. And just come up with a weird, roundabout, convoluted legal ways to tie it in and make it sound like it's a legitimate court case. $30 million because you don't get to live with Tiger anymore. Screw you, lady. You're probably living in a shack before he took you in. And the other story I want to get into, Skillz on Pills, is how many of our current players and current athletes and current fans don't know the history of sports and those who started before them. I recently came across on my Twitter timeline, at the Skillz Report, follow, I recently came across a photo of Ted Williams and Mickey Mantle, and they were in the middle of those two. Was it it has to be Willie Mays in the middle. We're talking the three greatest players of the 50s and 60s. The 50s and 60s. Three of the greatest players of the 50s and 60s who and if I know who these guys are, and I never saw any of them play live. Willie Mays retired in 1973. Ted Williams retired in 1960. Mickey Mantle retired in 1968 and died when I was a teenager. And Ted Williams died when I was 22. And yet, I could easily identify all three of those men by the time I was 12 or 13. And that's just from being a fan of the game and reading magazines and knowing who the hell was who was the gateway to today's game, who paved the way for the stars of today. And especially as a black man, I better know Willie Mays' story. Ted Williams is the greatest hitter who ever lived until he died. And Mickey Mantle, if you're a Ken Griffey Jr. fan, Mickey Mantle was Ken Griffey Jr. before Ken Griffey Jr. So when I go on Twitter and I have people, and I see people post who have names whose Twitter handles reference sports and whose Twitter posts suggest that they are big-time sports fans, when I see people on there who don't know who these men are, who ask stupid questions like, who are they? If you don't know who they are, that's bad enough. But you cannot go on there and just publicly say, who are they? Like you're talking about a crossing guard. Like you're talking about a cashier somewhere. Who are they? On this particular website that posted the photo, it's Baseball History Nut. That in and of itself, that was the handle. That in and of itself should have given an indication as to who we were talking about. Right? I mean, I don't think this person even knew that they were. He didn't know for sure they were baseball players. If I remember correctly, they weren't. They may or may not have been in uniform. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. You still, if you care enough about sports to have a sports related handle. I'm not outing the guy here, even though I should. You got to know at least who Willie Mays is. You got to know at least who Ted Williams was. You got to know who Mickey Mantle was. These are not just three everyday normal. These are three of the greatest, probably 10 players of all time. And you don't know who they were? You don't even recognize them, and you're sitting here on a sports website, and you care enough about sports to ask, and you just truly, I'll give this person an out if it turns out that they're like 9. But based upon the language they use, based upon their past posts, they sound closer to 45, which is almost my age. Know your history. If you play sports, especially if you play pro sports, you owe it to the game to know your history. If you're a fan of the game and you're a fan enough of the game to have opinions on it that you share publicly on a forum seen by millions of people, you got to know your history. You never see me talking about hockey. You know why? Because I don't know hockey. I don't know anything about hockey. I'll never sit here and pretend that I do. But I do know baseball a little bit, enough to know who freaking Willie Mays is. Blood pressure. Blood pressure. That's why I take the pills, people. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed today's show. We did things a little different this time around. There will not be as much focus on Bay Area sports going forward unless that Bay Area sport is, or Bay Area teams, I should say. Unless that team is front and center in the news for certain reasons, such as what's going on with the A's and their sale, or move, I should say. I keep saying sale. Move. Or should the Giants surge and take over, start making runs to the playoffs. But I will try to, I'm going to move forward and keep the balance, keep everything balanced as possible. I've heard you guys. You guys have spoken. I'm listening. I'm going to give you what you want. I'm going to try not to give you what you don't want, which is me eating cookies in the microphone. It's been real. I've had a lot of fun. This is probably my most fun show I've done so far out of the 3. Maybe it's because it's 11 in the morning instead of 11 at night. Who knows? But anyway, this has been Skillz on Sports. I'm your boy, Mr. T. We'll see you next time.